Hello everybody, you're listening to Inbam FM and this is JohnMohanaPrakash. God is good and His mercy endures forever. And today we've got somebody very important who's being used of God in a mighty way across the globe. Dr. Ravi, we want to thank you for this opportunity, and we also want to congratulate you on 25 years of serving the Lord.
Well, it's been 25 years on greased skis going downhill. It's moved so fast, So thank you very much, and thank you to your listeners as well.
You've been 25 years in the Lord's service, and you've been meeting with different types of people, and you've been leading people to Christ. You've been introducing God to a lot of people. You are like Moses in this 2011. So if you had to say one outstanding character of God, what would it be?
Actually, maybe the only thing I have in common with Moses is I've been in the ministry now 40 years. Yeah, the RZIM has been in existence for 25 years, the Life Focus 25 years. But I've been in the ministry since 1972, so I'm just entering the 40th year now. But still wandering in the wilderness, I guess, going around the desert again and again. The most important thing I think I've learned after being in this for so long is that people are far more willing to listen than we are often willing to tell them about things that matter most in life. It's a case of finding the right opportunity and the right time, so that you have to combine two things: truth with relevance. If you give the truth without relevance, they don't want to listen. If you give relevance without truth, it is irrelevant. So you have to combine the two, and then you've got a ready audience. Yeah.
You've been meeting with different types of people. So what was your worst experience, if I may ask, that you've ever faced?
Wow. My worst experience. I guess there are one or two that would stand out. There was once in a very beautiful setting in Hawaii, and I got completely exhausted in the middle of my talk and had to stop. And this was in front of a very critical audience. I don't know what it was. I just said, I'm too weary to continue, and I had to step down and go back into my room and lie down. That has happened twice in my 40-year ministry, which has taught me that you cannot be running on fumes. You have to get the rest between meetings and get the energy of soul that is needed. I would say those two stand out as my worst experiences.
Whenever people have seen your videos, they've always seen you instantly coming with the answer for any question. Was there ever a time when you had to say, let me get back to you after a little bit of study?
Basically, John, when you've been around for this long, you can just about predict the questions. I have not heard a new question in the last 10 years. There may be new names that are thrown into the mix for the same thing. But I think rather than say to them, I'll have to think about that, if it's a tough question, I will tell them to answer it in the brevity of 2 to 3 minutes will be an injustice to your question. So I need to give you a context, and the context is found in the following authors, and I'll give them the names of some authors to reflect on and touch and read. But in terms of actually the questions, I could ask more difficult questions of people who reject Christ than of those who do trust in Him.
So this wisdom and brilliance you have, because I've heard some of the top people referring to you as one of the most brilliant human beings ever alive on planet Earth. So is this a result of your hard work, or is this a gift from God?
Well, I feel very badly for anybody who thinks that it has to be impaired judgment. I would say, no, I don't. Frankly, I think that is absolutely not true. And I say that truthfully. It's not true. We're all ignorant in different subjects. We have our strengths, we have our weaknesses, but the most important thing to know is to think things through. And I was my own worst critic when I answered questions to myself. I was ruthless with myself if the answer was not satisfactory. So you try your best. I'll tell you what is the most difficult thing to do, not to be brilliant. The most difficult thing to do is to cover the longest journey in life, and that's from the head to the heart. If you've not covered that distance from the head to the heart, then your brilliance gets you nowhere. And if you only have a felt response, then you have forfeited intelligence in the process. We are thinking people, we are feeling people, and that connection has to be made.
If God ever gave you the opportunity to travel back in time, and if He would say, Ravi, you can redo anything in your life that you wish, what is that one thing you would like to do, or rather you would have done in a different way? When you turn back and see, what is that one thing you think you could have done it in a different way?
I don't even have to think about that question because I know what the answer is. I've been on the road now for nearly 40 years, since my graduation. I would not travel as much when the children were young. I would have chosen to stay home. But at that time, you were doing it thinking it was the most honorable thing to do. You were in a war zone, as it were. You had to go out. But now that the children are grown up, by God's grace, they're all doing well and walking very closely with the Lord. But it was my loss. I missed out on those most treasured years of having them as children, when they would reach out and hold your hand and walk beside you. Those days go very quickly, and I wish I had not been on the road as much. That's what I would redo.
But don't you think your ministry, the growth of your ministry could have been affected if you had done it the other way?
It may have been, but you ultimately have to be one who judges what your priorities are. The God who called you would honor what you did, and I think the growth would have been done in God's will, in God's way. But they were my prime responsibility. If of such is the kingdom of heaven, a little one, then I would love to have had a little more time with that kingdom of heaven in my own life, with them growing up.
Talking about your children, I know your children are walking close with God, and recently even your daughter Naomi, she has written a book called The Scent of Water. You have been traveling a lot, but how are you able to influence your children to make them come closer to God?
One thing I did do in all the years that I traveled, and once we got cell phones, talk to them every day. They heard my voice, or they got a note. There was a way of being in touch with them every day. And God has caused them to blossom beautifully. They're all three writers, all three of them. Naomi has written, Sarah has written, Nathan is now in charge of our radio program, and he's doing a marvelous job. And so I'm very grateful that they're all doing well. But they're their own people. They're wired the way God wired them to be. I didn't want them to be what I was or what I'd become. I wanted them to be what God wanted them to be, and I think that's the way God retains a continuity with particularity. There's a distinctiveness in their lives.
So you didn't want them to carry on the legacy of Ravi Zacharias?
Absolutely not. I wanted them to carry on the will of God in their lives. Charles Wesley said, God buries his workmen, but his work goes on. And it is not, I don't want my legacy, I don't want my name. I just want the values that we've treasured, the message but the books will carry that, the books will continue. That's in pages. People can read what you thought, how you thought, why you thought the way you did. Books can do that, tapes can do that, but persons are unique. They have to rise to their own level of uniqueness and not just reflect another person. The only one they have to reflect is Christ.
You're a traveling minister of God, and we perfectly know that you could be one of the busiest human beings on earth. So in the midst of all these tight schedules, how do you find time for your personal devotion with God?
You just have to start off the day with Him. There's no other way. You either look at the world through His eyes or you look at Him through the world. And the way to look at the world through His eyes is to start your day with devotions with Him and prayer. And there are many, many hours. I just flew in yesterday, and my journey from the United States through Kansas City to Chicago to London to Singapore, one flight alone was over 12 hours. You have a lot of time in there to think and read and pray. There's no cell phones going, no computers going. Well, I was writing a manuscript, but you get time alone with the Lord. You're very busy, because most people see you in that busyness, but you have a lot of time through the day where I don't do anything but prepare.
What does Dr. Ravi Zacharias pray? Does he pray for more wisdom on a daily basis? Or what exactly is a prayer that you pray, if you can let us know that?
Your prayer life actually consists of three things. First, waking up, and I use books to wake me up. I don't read the Bible to wake up because I don't want to waste the Bible on my half-sleepy mind. I get up in the morning, read something that'll wake me up. Then I read the scriptures. And then I pray and read words of hymns or Christian songs. So those form my components there. Wake up with the word, with prayer, and with music in your heart. That's what I do. What do I pray for? My most important responsibility is that I not do anything that day that would destroy everything that has taken years to build for the glory of God. You have to ask that question every day. What do I do today? And what you do today is make sure you don't violate everything that has taken years to build. I always pray much for my family, my wife, my children, because they are my trust before God. And I pray for my ministry-related things or things that people I've met with the day who want to talk to me and share prayer requests. It's a multiplicity of things on your mind, but the most important thing is to get your mind in such a state that God can speak to you. So it's not so much what you say to God as what He says to you when you're ready by the time you're finished praying.
That's fantastic. How can we excel? What is the secret to excel in the call of God and the work of God?
There's a difference between a person who is called, who therefore goes for a training and skill to answer the call, and a person who just goes for a training and skill and thinks therefore that they are called. The calling has to be prior, and the equipment and the teaching is in support of the call. It doesn't create the call. So they have to answer what the call is, and it's not a job. Once they establish their calling, then they support it with education and skill in order to take it. And the second thing I would say is the world is wide open today through many means and many opportunities to love the people of the world in all of their diversity, because in every human being is something very unique. And when you're finished with that person will touch you as much as you have touched them. And you see the nations of the world in their diversity and the privilege of serving God to every tongue and every tribe. And we've done nearly 70 countries now, and it's growing. We'll continue to do it. I tell young people, because of you, we have hope. So answer the call and do your best in preparing for that call.
Ravi Zacharias' ministry has come a long way, impacting millions of lives and nations. So 25 years from now, where do you see this ministry going?
I hope I'm with the Lord. I'll be very happy. I've had a wonderful life. I tell my wife it's not a problem for me if the Lord calls me home today. Actually be very thrilling because it's all I've preached and stood for. 25 years from now, whoever is on the scene taking the ministry, I've already appointed a new president. He used to be a student of mine in the 80s. I've handed over the presidency because I want to now focus on writing, speaking, and mentoring. He's running the organization. And 25 years from now, I hope the vision remains intact, the passion remains intact, the integrity remains intact, and God has given them new ways of doing the same thing.
Finally, I have to ask this one question in this age. We've seen top terrorists being slain. And is it right to celebrate the death of a terrorist who has massacred innocent babies and women? Is it right to celebrate the death of a terrorist?
John, I have learned that the most wise thing to do is to stay out of politics. These things are political things that are decisions and made. And it's a kind of answer, no matter what you say, somebody gets politically offended. So whenever I go to a country, I say to them, I will come and preach my message. Leave me out of the political ramifications of this. Political theories, political ideas, vendettas come and go. When Jesus was asked if he was going to become king and going to kick off the yoke of Rome, he told him his kingdom was not of this world. So the kingdom of this world does these things. It is not in my orb of advice to tell people whether this should be done or not. From my way of thinking, I just see in my own heart that when you take evil and recompense evil with evil in all kinds of ways, you run the risk of evil never ending. But if you also take the other extreme of saying we have no responsibility to deal with those who are perpetrators of evil, you run into the other end of the spectrum of no justice. We have criminal courts, we have police, we have militaries in order to stem the tide of evil. And that's what the ultimate responsibility should be. How they do it is for politicians to decide, and how I would do it would be for me to decide. And so for me, it is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Wonderful. And finally, we want to thank you for your time. It was a great blessing. And on behalf of Inbam FM, Jesus the Joy Ministries, and iJoy Radio, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for these few minutes and words of wisdom.
Thank you, John, very much. I appreciate it. God bless you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, dear listeners, for joining with us today. And I'm sure all of you were touched by God's presence. And please do write to us at inbamfm@gmail.com, inbamfm@gmail.com. And until we meet next time, God bless you. Bye-bye.
Hi, praise the Lord. I am Brother Ebenezer, and me and my wife Gloria, we are a frequent listener of Inbam FM. We are really blessed through the programs which has been broadcasted every day. God really speaks to us a lot of things through Inbam FM. Whenever we are discouraged or depressed or sad, Inbam FM was a source of encouragement for us to grow in faith and to grow spiritually. Especially, I thank John Anna and Lata Akka was a source of blessing to me and to my family all through these years. Thanks Anna Akka, thanks Inbam FM, and God bless you all.
Praise the Lord, people. I'm Kirti, speaking from Australia. First of all, I would like to thank to John Anna and Lata Akka for giving me this beautiful chance to share my testimony on this Inbam FM. I feel so honored and happy to be a part of this, and I would like to make my testimony very sweet and simple because God has done a very big miracle in my life. Yes, people. Few months back, I had a misunderstanding with my husband. My husband left me. My marriage life was broken. I was under depressed and stress. The enemy started attacking my marriage life. From Singapore, God brought me to Australia. And God didn't leave me alone. I prayed to God. I asked Him, God, please give me a peaceful life. I don't want to live, God. Take my life. But God said, I love you, my child. Hold on to me. And I called Lata Akka a few months back. She prayed for me, and I chose to listen to Inbam FM. Until now, I've been praying every single day in my life. There was a time I don't read Bible, I don't pray, I used to drink. My pathway was so different. I used to do worldly things. I do not seek God, but God still loved me. He didn't leave me. He changed my entire life. I will start listening to FM every day. The prayer was so powerful. The testimony was so powerful. I've been listening to heaps of testimonial, and I believe in Jesus. I have faith in Jesus. I know God will change my life, and God has done a very big miracle in my life. He restored my marriage life. Whatever broken has been fixed by the Lord, Heavenly Father. And I do not fail to thank my Jesus, because God is the only God who can fix everything. I know a lot of people have been going through a lot of things. You are going through stress in your life. You are going through depression in your life. You feel like do not want to live anymore. But hold on to God. God is doing miracle in your life. Everything is going to come to an end. Please listen to Inbam FM. Your life is going to change. Definitely, you will get the blessing. You will get a deliverance. And God is love you. God will never leave you. Thank you, Lata Akka and John Anna, for your prayers. Your prayers kept me so strong. I am so good now. I am so happy in my life. I never feel alone anymore because your prayers are with me and God is with me. Thank you for everyone who ever listened to my testimony. I really hope this will help someone, whoever is going through a lot in your life. Listen to Inbam FM. You will get the blessing. You will feel from your inner heart, you will feel God is going to change the entire situation. Nothing is impossible for God. And thank you for everything, Lata Akka, John Anna. I feel so grateful and thankful. Amen.